All right. Welcome to episode number 28 of the Nosedive podcast. My name is Vinie Vizzle. I have Mark right next to me on one of either these sides. Mark, how have you been last week?
I'm somewhere. I try and keep things the same, but sometimes I forget and I switch us around as well. I'm over here. Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm not bad. I've been delving into the wonderful and beautiful and gloriously shitty world of VESC over the last couple of weeks. And I've got my GT working now. And as of about 2 hours ago, I've got my son's pint running beautifully now.
Right.
So, yeah, I've managed to be fair, I used a lot of people when they go through VESC stuff. The best one is pev.dev to look up all the VESC stuff, all the information is there and stuff like that. But I'm lazy. I just like people to feed me information. So I used a lot of Google Gemini, which at points went horribly wrong, which involved me having to open up my board and plug it into my laptop because it told me to do something. Could I turn the Bluetooth off by accident? But actually using the laptop to set up my son's pint and change all the numbers and stuff, so much more convenient than using the phone app in terms of being able to punch the numbers and have a bunch of screens open as well to check stuff. So
Interesting.
Just a lot easier to do than have a phone, look at something, go to the pev.dev, read something, go back to the phone, open the VESC, find so much easier once I had it all set up. But you have to go through the ache of opening up a board and then hoovering it when all the mud falls inside there, which is what happened to me. So I've been having fun though. I've been not getting used to it, but getting to grips a little bit more perhaps.
Yeah.
So you've been quite productive. I've watched your videos.
I've bought me a two-wheeler to get my condition back up to snuff because winter is always harsh here in Belgium. Not a lot of riding time. So I bought an electric e-bike to get around in the mud because I want to stay in shape more in the winter, because if I don't, I tend to get depleted from energy by the end of the winter, and I didn't want to let that happen this winter. And I managed to get through the dark weeks without too much of a hassle, which is awesome. And it really gives you a heads up start for the spring. So that was the intention, and that really paid off. So that's a good thing. And finally, I didn't have the apps and all of that stuff, but I did find Alexis, and my VESC finally found his way to assembly, and Alexis managed to get his tune into that machine. Into that board, sorry, PJ. And there, I finally had my VESC machine ready and available to ride. Had a little test run on our freestyle session, but nowhere near a good run. But last week we've been blessed with some sunshine, and I got to test the board out properly in the trails. And it's wicked. I'm gonna share the whole timeline of my VESC story, which is quite. It's about a year that I had to miss my VESC, and it took me a year to rebuild that whole thing. So people, if you don't know shit about VESC, and if you don't have the time to take a deep dive, stay away from it.
I would say that. I mean, I was not forced, but I bought an XR that had a shitty battery, so I had to VESC my son's XR. Well, they're all my boards, but my eldest rides the XR. Had to VESC that, and in doing that, meant that the pint was useless in terms of range, so I had to do that. And I literally just set them up and I've left them because I don't want to mess about with stuff. But because I then had to, being a bit selfish, I've tweaked a few things, and I've learned a lot in the last week, I would say, particularly when it comes to pints and VESCing. A lot, because everything is for XR. Everything is XR and GT and all the K angle, or is it the P angle? Shit. One of the angles screws up a pint. Absolutely. It's the K angle. God, someone in the comments is going to slate me for getting that wrong. But basically, as far as I understand, it's the amount of power going into the board. And my son's board was trying to suck in XR GT levels of power, but it doesn't. True. So it's just constantly overpowering, doing this little jumping around on the floor kind of thing. So, I just played with that, and it's working. I've just texted him going, we'll play on the weekend. We'll ride it around the garden first, see if it dumps you. And then if not, we'll go for a proper ride. But it's not as, I think the build part of it, if you're putting stuff together, can be a bit frightening. But yeah, there's lots of help out there. And I have to thank Dan Parker for sending me a message going, have you looked at the motor current? Because I just had a little go and it wasn't working. And I just looked at it, and there's a thingy with the float wheel drop-in kits that automatically makes the motor current really low. Wow, I talk like I know what I'm talking about. I don't. All I know is it needs to be 120 and not 30. Otherwise, when you go, it just nosedives. So pre episode today, I nosedived in the garden about 20 times before I gave up. A message down going on.
Yeah, it's cool because I did need to troubleshoot a few things, and that's so cool about this community. You just give somebody a ping or a call, they immediately direct or they answer. And I even had a helpline from Alexis. I've been sending him some screenshots. He just tells me by heart, just tune that, take that down, or put that off. And it's cool that we have this kind of support, because I still didn't have the time to dive into it, and that's kind of my brain. If I want to do something, I really want to take a deep dive into it.
7 hours.
And
I spent 7 hours in the last week deep diving on the VESC tool and the app and stuff.
Yeah, it's really necessary to take care of that. But I've been getting some help also from Lars. Lars, thank you very much, on the float control app, showing me some things on how to manage that. Also on the Ride Hermes app, he taught me how to record a segment and then how to transfer it into the actual segment, because you have to do some stuff afterwards as well. Okay. So it's cool to see that everybody's just reaching out and helping to dial that in as well. So a lot of thanks to the community for that.
Yeah, there are a good bunch of guys and girls out there that will go the extra mile just to help someone progress that little bit further, to do that little bit more.
Yeah, so, and talking about helping people, I also found a link again, or a link, there's a dude that makes YouTube videos, Fix My PEV. He used to have like a repair shop, but he was kind of forced to take it down, and he made a new video again because he has a very interesting website. I kind of forgot about that in the past, but if you go to fixmypev.com, he has a lot of manuals and instructions, mainly for future motion machines. So people who ride future motion and want to recalibrate stuff or really dive into what you can do to tune your board properly. He has a very cool website as well, fixmypev.com, I think it is. And yeah, and he kind of has a lot of stuff on there. So really interesting for people who ride the future motion one wheels.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. Speaking about boards and VESC and everything else, we do have a guest tonight. We should let him in. He's been patiently waiting in the background. I'm going to click the button and it'll work or it won't work. And it's worked.
Yeah. There we have him. Good evening.
What's up, guys?
All good. How are you tonight?
How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, man. I'm a bit tired.
It's getting late for you guys. You European guys, it's getting close to bedtime. Me, it's getting close to tea time, to have some food. So this is where I normally forget, and Vinie jumps in. Lennart, introduce yourself to our watchers and listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I am Lennart Duijn, and I am the guy behind Lenco Solutions. And Lenco Solutions is a company that makes parts for one wheels. And sometimes I make full boards for people. So yeah, I've been trying to be like the alternative as a European guy. Yeah. And I just really like one wheeling, man.
Well, we'll start there. We'll get into Lenco and the boards and the parts.
Sure.
And the list of questions that I definitely didn't write, but I'm going to totally pretend that I did write them. But I've got sat right in front of me now. But what got you into one wheeling in the first place then? Let's start where we usually start with.
Yeah, it's funny stories. Like I always been skateboarding, windsurfing, like board sports in general. I always loved. And at some point, I went to my local snowboard shop, and they had a one wheel. I think it was a Plus, something like that. And the guy was like, "Oh, you want to give it a shot?" And I saw the price tag, and I was like, "Hey, you really don't, but I really do." So of course, I ended up riding it. I instantly really liked it, but I couldn't really afford it. But it really stuck in my mind. So for years, I always had like in the back of my mind, so one day I'm going to ride one of these one wheels. And then at some point I was on vacation with the family. I was touring Scandinavia with a camper, and I had lots of time sitting on a chair in the woods when the family went to bed. And I saw like people on YouTube building their own boards, and I was like, I gotta be able to do that. um, I was like, I could build this much cheaper and better. So I ordered some parts, started designing, built a board, and it was terrible.
Yeah, that's the thing with experiments. Did you ever actually ride an FM board, a Future Motion one wheel? No, never.
That was all the riding I did, like in that store, riding around like a few meters, and then I just built that board, and I was like, basically threw it in the bin right away. Started making the second version, and it was really after a while when it was like, oh, this is version 3 now, and it's starting to become like something. And then I had the site up, and I had some Instagram thing going on, and Muddy Shoes from the Stoke Seekers found me, and he was like, you gotta come for a ride. So I showed up, and there was like surrounded with all kinds of boards. We already had the ADV back then, so there was like people on Stock XRs, ADVs, and I was there with my board. So shout out to Muddy Shoes for really pushing it forward as well. And I was like, the board needs to be fully overhauled again because it just doesn't stack up to these boards here. And it was really cool to have like so many different boards around, so many people with different riding styles, and so much feedback, and so really the community already started helping there, and just progress from there. So this is, sometimes I ride like short section of a trail on a board, and that's it. I never wrote any FM stuff at all.
And how long did it actually take you to get to like your first version of a one wheel? Because it's not an easy thing to build if you start from scratch.
So I would say to build a working version is not the hardest thing in the world. So I think it took me like maybe 1 or 2 months, something like that. But as I said, it's like basically unrideable. Sometimes you see people online doing like the thing where they take apart a hoverboard and they turn it into one wheel. And I'm not discouraging anyone to do that because it's really cool. And as long as you're building something that works, I always say that's a huge achievement. Like you build something that works. And as you say, it's kind of hard. But to build something that is like sophisticated and keeps up with the thing that we are used to now, that takes forever. That takes all my time.
So can we go back for a second then? So you snowboard, skateboard, and all the rest of it. You go into the shop, you try one wheel, you have a little spin around, and then you go away and it sits there. So what is your background? Because we had Vid on a couple of episodes ago, or last time, I can't remember now. And he has a background of building stuff and stuff like that. You don't just go, let me just work out how to CAD design a one wheel. What is your background?
Yeah, it's interesting background. I would say I definitely took the long way around. I started basically, I quit school, and then I was working at McDonald's thinking like, this is not going to be for me forever. So I really got to do something, So I became a car mechanic. I was a car mechanic for 6 years. And at night I would study engineering. So worked my way up from there, and then I at some point was employed as a full-fledged engineer, like a mechanical engineer. But when you're a car mechanic, you're also obviously doing lots of electronics.
Yeah.
So that really helps tying those two worlds together, because you really need like at least knowledge of everything. So yeah, in a nutshell, that.
Fantastic, and that is amazing, and there's obviously a lot more that goes into that.
Yeah,
you don't just kind of where did you start then? Where did you start in terms of, obviously you've got the mechanical engineering experience and stuff like that. Had you made other, not similar, but anything with so much need for refinement? A car has an engine, 4 wheels, pistons, it moves, and it takes a lot more with balances and sensors and software and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, obviously, when you're working on a car or you building engines or stuff like that, you're always like sort of on the paths that been walked before, for lack of better wording. So it's like you're always doing something that's already been done. It's just like say you forget everything, there's a way to find it. Especially nowadays, there's YouTube, there's manuals, and I always wanted to create something new. So I was always looking for that next thing. And then it kind of came together when I wrote that one wheel, because this could allow me to connect many things. I could connect a board sport to creating something new and, meeting cool people and stuff like that. So it's that whole package for me that really set it apart. And yeah, it also kind of got out of hand. I would be the first to admit that, because it's like, as I said, I thought I was done after 3 versions, and now I'm already making version number 7, and then my colleagues are already teasing me like, "Oh, you gotta build version number 8." No, I'm not gonna do it. It's like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. It's just a bug. It catches you and gets under your skin, and it just I love creating new things. I love the feeling when you have an idea and then you work it out, and then obviously with 3D printing now, it's fantastic that you can have that idea in your hands so very quickly. And then it also helps reduce costs a lot because you get to iterate like versions at a much lower price. And then at some point you have it CNC machined, and then it becomes something that works, and then you improve something else. It's fantastic.
Kind of followed your iterations on the board, and you're now up to a point where you're making the board XR compatible or XR parts compatible. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been compatible from version 6, sorry. So from versions 5 to 6, at that point we kind of realized that the motor was already pretty good that we developed. I just had started with a motor because I couldn't get my hands on a hypercore, so I just had to sort it somewhere else. And then this motor just developed from that. And then because I was in this Stoke Seeker group, and then many people are writing, it's like, it looks kind of funny, but it really rides, It's like, we need this motor on an XR platform. That would be fantastic. Like, okay, let me think how we can manage to do that. And at some point, I just really just overhauled the entire frame again, made it compatible so that you could use like things like torque boxes and bang bumpers, stuff like that. Also, just it's like a process where you start to realize like there's like many people in the market doing like things, and you can't basically do it all. And I think that the Float Life makes fantastic bumpers. I like torque boxes, and at some point I was like designing battery boxes, thinking like, I'm not really bringing that much to this part, so it would be much better to have a platform that integrates everything. And I really like the XR platform most. So yeah, this kind of makes sense to go into this direction for me.
Yeah.
So how are the parts for the board manufactured? I'm now reading my list. How are the parts from the board manufactured, or are they cast or billeted? And as if I even understand what the word billet actually means. Thanks, Dan, for your questions, by the way.
Well, billet means that you mill it from a solid piece of aluminum, which is the strongest. Yeah, that's the strongest form of manufacturing, because when you're producing a solid block of aluminum, you have a lot of control over this process. And the other way to produce parts would be to cast it. That would be like a high injection cast mold, which implies that you need tooling for this mold, which is like crazy expensive. But if you have enough numbers, because once you have the mold right, it's very cheap to get the part out. So that's really the name of the game. That's why you see like the Float Life starting with their billet 5-inch hub.
Yeah.
And then later progressing to a cast version as they know there's a certain demand and they can bring the price down. That will obviously create more sales. As I am still on quite low production runs, everything is billet CNC. So yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. And it's quite a hefty motor as well. You have the 4,000 watt motor in the Lenco wheel. What made you choose for such a beast? Because that's even more than the Superflux. I think Superflux is 2,000.
Yeah. So I gotta explain this, because these numbers are like I wouldn't say open for interpretation is not the right word, but it's like you can look at it from different ways. Obviously, you could see what sort of peak load that we get. Yeah, it's funny because today I saw an ADV ad somewhere and it said it is 8,000 watts. Yeah, the ADV2 is supposed to be 8,000 watts. But if you're just looking at peak current, I could claim that it's 10,000 watts because we've had peaks like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, one wheels, they don't really have continuous torque anyway, because it's like always changing. So it's hard to say. But Yeah, the question was, why do you have so much?
Yeah, well,
And
so
really,
powerful.
it's like, I need it.
I want power.
Kebab. Yeah.
It's like the Clarkson thing, right? Speed and power.
Awesome.
And is that in
Now,
the 5-inch?
That's also interesting. So to finish the story, I am heavier than most people. I'm this big Dutch guy, really. So I need the power. And obviously in the Stoke Seekers, people are mad fast. So you want to like have every edge you can have just to keep up with these guys. And definitely starting out, I really needed this from my board because I couldn't compensate with skill because these guys all had so much experience. So this is really where it came from. And then, there's a 5-inch version now. It's an interesting project. It's the power is exactly the same than it is in the 6-inch, and this is because it's using exactly the same stator and the same magnets and everything, which would give you the same thermals and exact same property. It sounds amazing, but it's really hard to fit this massive stator and magnet configuration in a tire. And for the longest time, I was quite convinced that it was not possible without changing the stator, which would require like full development of new stators. And it would always be a compromise, like having worse thermals or less power or any of that. And in the end, I found a way to basically assemble the motor inside the tire and then you can fit it in.
Yeah,
but it is not for everyone.
You said that in your video of your kind of piece of advice is you can get a motor off of me, but if you want to send me a tire, I'll put it together for you.
Better.
Yeah.
I love that. With the let me think of a question here. The Float Life 5-inch hub had to come up with an angled valve stem so that it could be assessed around the axle blocks. Was this also a challenge to get it to work with your design? Just a thought, a question off the top of my head.
No, actually, that was the one thing that kind of I was just able to stick it in and it worked.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's like, it is ridiculously close, to be honest, but I didn't really put that much thought into it, and I was assembling it, and I was like, ooh, that's very close.
Yeah.
Works.
And when looking at your boards, you also have like an axle with just it's not a regular nut, but it's a nut on the outside, totally different than the Future Motion designs. Did you just have that at hand, or did you really think about that design?
So as I started with an existing motor, this is like super cost efficient because this motor is like used in ridiculous scooters and stuff. They have like races with scooters in China, and it's if you want something funny to watch, check that out. But this is why they already like developed a stator that has that power, and there's many benefits to using a smaller shaft. One is the bearings will also be smaller in diameter. And as you know, probably that the bearings of like a float wheel are crazy expensive, and it's because these bearings are very rare. And I am using some of the most common bearings out there. So if you would spend like 20 quid, that would buy you fantastic bearings. And then also same with the seal, because the larger diameter you have on the shaft, the more friction you will have from the seal, and the seal will actually also produce a lot of heat. So it's always best to have a small diameter shaft. Obviously, this comes with the drawback of less strength, so this would need to be compensated. The stock Hypercore has a cast aluminum shaft, which is also hollow, of course. And I am using just a full steel shaft, which is much stronger to compensate for that. And then there's the argument of heat, right? So we're using the shaft to dissipate heat. But the theory I am working with is that if you don't generate it, you don't have to dissipate it. That's kind of the whole thing. So you could say, oh, the shaft is very small. Will it dissipate the heat? Well, for people that have been riding the Lenco know that the thermals are really great and not generating much heat at all. So this has never been an issue. I didn't really even know that was an issue until I started riding with other people. And then we did some hilly sections and people were overheating. I was like, are you overheating from this? I thought.
But my board is much better than yours.
No experience.
Well, in that regard, maybe. I think everything has trade-offs, and we're getting into this area where it's becoming preference, right? So there's a lot to choose from, and there's many good products. I don't want to down talk any product, because I think there's a lot of good products out there, and it's definitely preference. Also, what you're doing with it. I like to rip up trails, and if you want to do tricks and you grab my board, you're not gonna have a good time.
Yeah,
that's just what it is.
Everybody has his preference, definitely.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's good. It's good for the consumer, right?
Yeah, that's good to have more options. Talking about, like you mentioned that you create full boards. Can you sell and ship them as a full assembly, or does it come in like an IKEA package for the people?
Yeah, so it's officially, I could only do this in the Netherlands because of the patent. Future Motion doesn't have it in the Netherlands. So this is the official answer. And some people are really handy with sticking the motor on. It's really something I just do more for the community, I would say, because it's really time in consuming to build full boards. And more times than not, there's like small things like working out, like small details in the beginning, and that requires you looking at this board again, or you would have to test ride it, but then you would take the new smell of the board off, and that's also not what you want, right? So I would rather build boards for people in the area, because this way it's much easier to control its quality, because this is something that's really important to me as well. I don't really feel comfortable building boards for people that are very far away, let's say.
And they are quality boards. They are very, very pretty boards.
Thank you.
They are beautiful. So pretty, in fact, that if I just sit back here for a minute and just put this on there, this is how pretty they are, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't mine. Sadly, it isn't mine. It's a beautiful sponsorship donation to a small event that I don't really talk about at any point, called Shred the Shires. That's good. But
never heard of that.
When I opened the box, and by the way, excellent wrapping. It took me about 15 minutes to get into the bubble wrap of this box, but this thing, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
So this is the version 6 or 7 frame?
7. Yeah,
7.
Let me just do that.
P7 frame.
There we see it, because
there you go.
Version 7 has something special.
I've watched your video. Other people may not have done. What is this?
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm sticking with what Nico is calling it, and he's calling it roll suspension.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, makes
logic.
Sense.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. And the whole point is, I was racing in Czech Republic on pitlands, and this is for people that don't know, it's on a go-kart track, so it's tarmac or indoor go-kart track. So it's really about getting around a flat track very fast. It's mostly an EUC and an e-skate game, but I thought it was interesting to watch there, so I went, and I noticed that the e-skates are so much faster, and I really wanted that. So I was like, how is it possible that they're a lot faster? And I feel like one of the reasons is that a skateboard and an e-skate, they kind of they steer by leaning, right? So the whole board kind of tilts like in one way. Yeah. And I was like, it feels like a one wheel when you're going faster. It really tries to stay upright. So you're like missing out on really that body lean. So that was the thought behind designing something that could allow you to lean more into a corner. And this is how I came up with that idea. And of course, at that point, you have no clue how it's going to ride, what's going to do when you do a drop, what's it going to do when you're riding over some chunk. So it was an interesting experiment. So I just grabbed as many pieces I had still lying around, and ordered some steel, started welding, and then I had this board together, and it kind of worked really well. At least that's what I think. And then Portugal was already planned, so I had to bring it to Portugal.
Yeah, that's where we saw it
many
live
people
for the
tested
first
it.
time.
Yeah, I think you did you ride it?
I didn't ride it. No, I didn't ride it. I did see it passing by a couple of times, but I was always doing something else, and I didn't get to ride it. So pretty curious still.
Is it the only board that didn't overheat in Portugal?
People with Lenco wheels, but
yeah, it looks interesting.
But yeah, I think so.
The idea behind it is really cool, because that's indeed where if you really can lean into a corner, you can maintain that speed a lot better.
So this
and
is
with the kind of
in the middle here, it basically leans on this point. Am I right? And the whole
So on the front and the back, there's like a bearing, and then the whole center is like in a cage that's like rotating over these bearings, and that can allow the board to have this larger angle. And it turned out to have like a few other benefits for me as well. It's like when you're going like over some chunks, sometimes you have like a rock on one side of the tire, and it tends to like swerve you out. Like you have to really fight that with your back foot, make that really stable. Especially also beginners struggle with that. Like, how do I keep the back stable? And it seems to dampen this out. It's still there, the effect, but it's like much less pronounced, and this also adds to like the feeling of floating, in my opinion. I really like that. And it's really fast on banks. It's crazy. You can really ride these banks super high. And when you're riding a flowy track, it's like amazing. I really like it.
I can imagine, like, we did a few single tracks recently where bikes normally ride, and they have like narrow lanes a bit wider than the tire, and there you always run up until the edges, and the edges are a bit higher. And if it could counter that a little bit, because that's if you go fast and you hit that bank, you kind of tend to flip over. So that would be a very good solution if that could counter that.
Yeah, it's not gone, but I think it definitely helps. And also like this tends to roll out the board under your feet, right? And you have like an extra inch or so to compensate for that. It's like before you roll out, you can still roll out, obviously, but it definitely helps.
Okay.
I've got this very crazy idea in my mind right now that because you're coming to Shred the Shires, but we need to just get a marquee together and get yourself, Luke Massey, everyone that knows about sort of the VESC software and stuff like that, and a couple of the race. Get Jake Henwood in there as well. Just lock you in a marquee, lock you in a little tent for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just see what comes out of that conversation. Because we've had Luke on before, and Luke makes some fantastic one-wheel shaped objects. I have to be Luke will chase me down and kill me if I don't call it a one-wheel shaped object, because he doesn't call them one-wheels. They're one-wheel shaped objects. Just that conversation that would be, I think we could just set up the beer tent. You guys sit in the middle, just like an audience with, and we'll just all sit around the outside and just listen to the shit you come up with. No one will understand half of what is said about angles and degrees and welding and billeting and what type of magnets do you use? One of the questions that Dan has put in and stuff like that.
Yeah,
weird stuff.
38H.
Up then. Just get a big whiteboard and just jot things.
It's something I really enjoy about going to events. It's like finding guys like Luke, like Jelle, like many of the people, and then just talking endlessly, enjoying a beer and just talking stuff. And then, it's fantastic. It's also like really interesting because people are really helping each other, at least from my point of view. Like sometimes I need a model of something, or Jelle has done some new stuff with VESC Express, and he's like always sharing that. So really appreciative about that. I really like that part of the sport as well. It's like, it's still pretty much a community of people trying to help each other with the single goal of pushing this sport further and further.
Well, definitely pushing it, man.
I'm trying.
Seeing some random racing on a track of little e-skate things and going, I wonder if I could make my one wheel better than that. And just going away and just knocking it together. That's why you're going to make a version 8. That's where you're going to make the V8 with the... No, look at that. That's my wife might be watching. No, I'm not going to make a version 8.
My wife told me, she's like, can I listen to the podcast? I'm like, yes. I can't say everything, guys. Sorry.
Welcome to the Nosedive podcast. Well, I will say these things for you. There will be no choice after the melding of heads together that we'll have.
They forced my hand. Yeah.
Yeah. Always.
Yeah. It's like I always say that I don't really think there's something innovative left, and this is kind of where it is. And then it's like this idea creeps up, and then it has to come out. So, yeah, maybe, probably, we'll see.
You've got to sell some version 7 first before you can make a version 8, and that's the way the world goes, I suppose. So you're constantly taking orders in for things and trying to develop stuff from that.
Yeah, it's like basically I sell a few boards, I make a little bit of profit, pump it back into development. Development is crazy expensive. As I said, it's gotten a lot better with 3D printing and some other stuff. Also AI has been contributing from the beginning, I would say. But it's still like you could pump in, like, let's say you build one board as a prototype and you spend 2,000-3,000 euros, and it turns out it doesn't work. That's already a lot of money. You don't want to really do that 2, 3, 4 times, let's say. So yeah, you're right. It's like the thing I'm really poor at, I would say, is that it's trying to make money, So yeah, I should take your advice and really try to sell this frame before thinking about this feature.
And in one of your creations, you also put in a 13-inch tire, if I'm not mistaken. How did you manage that?
Some people are actually still riding it.
Yeah, so you can make a 13-inch compatible board with Lenco?
Yeah, I think so. There, you need a tire to start with, and that is originally a lawnmower tire. It's not the most expensive for that reason, because obviously production for lawnmower tires is much higher than for one wheels, which made it interesting. And I was like, oh, people are going the big tire route, so let's see what we can do. If I'm being fully honest, I would say riding characteristics are not really like catered to riding one wheel. So yeah, it has a place. And also, like, you see that with every big tire, it sort of becomes a bit more clunky. It can go over every chunk, but you kind of need to slow down, make a turn, and then just speed up again, which is, I mean, to be honest, it can be really fast in racing, but is it the most enjoyable? I don't know. It's not for everyone, let's just say. But yeah, it can be done.
Mark? I've got other bits and questions down here. Weight. What is the weight of a fully built V7?
It's just below 20 kilos.
Okay. I picked up one of Luke's, I don't know which version of Luke's boards it was the other day, but that was 25 kilos. Heavy.
That's a heavy baby.
With that thing can go up everything, so he doesn't have to carry it up any hills, and he's got range all the way. So, yeah,
that's great.
That was heavy. I think.
But there's always this one situation where you have to carry it.
Yeah, there's always going to be some point. The stairs. Now, find a long way around. I would only say that I would end our chat on one of Dan's. This was before you came on. I explained when Dan gave me a bit of advice on tweaking my son's pint, because I didn't have the motor ampage or wattage or voltage, whatever it is, up enough because of the software. But he simply said he's got balls. He really goes out and tries to make things happen, even though it's a massive challenge. And I think that's right. I mean, you've gone from trying a one wheel in a shop to building version 7 that sits, or most of half of it sits here next to me. I didn't ask, what's the timeline in that? What's the timeline in, what was the year when you built or first rode the one wheel, sitting in the woods, watching a video, then going, I can do that. What, from that point, when was that?
So I think after I saw this board in the shop, I didn't touch one wheels for I think 4 or 5 years. And so this all happened in a timeline of 3 years, let's say.
We got 7 versions in 3 years.
Yeah.
I understand why your wife you can build version 8 now.
I checked on Instagram. The first V1 post was on November 2023. So it's quite a fast evolution getting to version 7. And I also have one thing that I was curious about, and it's about waterproofing, because we saw Adrian testing your board on WOW 2024, the muddiest race ever.
Oof.
And he wanted to clean his board, and he took it the goes way. He just took a few buckets and he just trashed them all over the board to keep it clean.
Yeah, he did.
How waterproof is the Lenco wheel? Because he actually rode it the whole weekend. He got onto the podium, if I'm not mistaken. There,
he did.
So the board lasted.
The board definitely lasted, and this was definitely a proper test because WoW was indeed fantastically rainy. This is actually where I saw you for the first time, and I remember you had a gnarly crash.
Yeah.
But
maybe your invention would have saved me from that. I rocked over something on my side, broke my ribs, so that might have been helpful.
But you, perhaps, I don't know. It's definitely helpful. You should really buy one.
Good marketing.
or you can buy raffle tickets at Strippers Flyers.
Yeah,
you might go in there. Win this.
Go in there. So
you can.
So the waterproofing.
Yeah. So Adrian was riding version 5 of the board. It's really, I'm so thankful for him still, because he was like one of the first to like sort of believe in this whole thing. And I remember that we were riding the trail, like my local home trail here. Adrian came out and we were like riding. It's like good fun. And I was like, yeah, you want to try the board? He's like, yeah, sure. And he was like amazed with the performance of the motor. And he was like, oh, it's so weird. I am the limit instead of the board, which was really cool. I remember we went for like a speed record right after that with that same version. And for a while, this was actually the fastest board in the world at that point, because we did 69 on that. And we actually have some videos of that. It wasn't really wise, so we've never really openly largely promoted that, because I think you should really be smart about things like that. It was none of that. So let's not really get into that. But Adrian was convinced of the board, and he committed right then and there, like, I want one of these boards. And then he said, well, I'm racing this board. It's like, oh, this is like a huge next step. It's going to be very cool to test. And then it started raining. So I was like, how waterproof is it? And Adrian, I remember having a conversation with him, and I was like, yeah, I should probably be mindful, and it's probably not worth like risking ruining the board in this rain. Maybe I shouldn't even ride. And then he was like, nah, fuck it, I'm just gonna send it. So he just grabbed the bucket of water. And I was like, oh, at least I'm gonna film it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's always cool to see how these boards manage the abuse that some people bring to it, and you have to do it to test it. We want to know how it performs, so it's good that we have some people like Adrian and Goes and other people who really push the boards to the limits.
Sure. So what I would say is that that point I was not claiming it to be waterproof at all. It was a 3D printed battery box. It had just basically a plastic cover. And but if you are like a designer like me, it's like the thing that you train your mind to do is to constantly think about every little thing that can go wrong and what you could do to prevent this, because this is what you need to capture in the design, to basically think of all the situations to put the board in and then make sure it doesn't break. So I constantly see things that could potentially go wrong, and Adrian is just thinking, I want to win this race. I'm going to pour a bucket of water on it because it needs to be clean. So I think you really need many people with many different points of view. It was also clear to me that if you want like more peace of mind, the waterproofing needed to improve. So it was something I really worked on, progressing from that version to the next. So the V6 after that, it also was just XR compatible. So you could stick an original control box in it and an original battery box, and you would have the same waterproofing. But then came people who wanted the torque box in it, so you just have the same waterproofing as a torque box, basically. And then I developed my front box because I like using the spin end controllers, basically, and I'm using this massive spin end controller which only fits that particular box. And I was really mindful of making that much more waterproof, also just for my peace of mind. And, Thomas Ventelue, he was one of the first ones to have that box, and he also rode it through many things. And he's like He's one of these people that really takes care of their boards. I'm not judging or anything, but yeah, I have like people on both ends, right? So he regularly takes his board apart and inspects it. There's like dust coming in, it's like water coming in. And I remember one of the first rides we did, we had like very poor weather because in the Netherlands we basically ride all season. So you really send it through some big puddles and rain all day, and it was covered in mud. And we took the board apart, and it was completely fine. So I always say, don't throw it in like a pool or like something like that. Don't make ridiculous claims like that, because this is a completely different situation than having water sprayed on it.
Yeah.
So as long as you're spraying water, you should be good.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Definitely in Belgium and Holland is important information.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. All right.
Get like the high pressure washer to wash your board after the ride.
Yeah. Wouldn't advise that, but yeah, some people do.
Yeah.
Always.
So yeah, I say this is like part of the iteration process, right? You just try to improve everything
one step at a time.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Thank you very much for the raffle prize. I hope to win it. I'm still arguing with the team as to whether or not team members are allowed to enter the raffle, because I'll spend most of my money on trying to buy it, but we'll get an independent person to draw the tickets because I want to win some of the prizes. We've got some wicked prizes coming. But thank you so much for your time and for your mental energy, I think, that goes into into these boards to develop them and push the sport, particularly in Europe, where we are left to devise our own things, and from that you get stuff like this. So you know what?
So never mind.
Yeah,
one more day.
Thank you guys.
So you guys
really, really thank you for the invitation, and I really appreciate what you're doing, as I like what you're contributing like to the sport, and I feel like almost everyone has like the same goal. We really like one wheeling and we want to push that. So thanks for that. Thanks for having me. And I'll see you guys at Shred Shires, I guess.
You will?
Yeah, pretty soon. It's coming closer.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Yeah, it's coming. I'm excited.
Really? Nice. Thank you so much, Lennart. Right. Always amazed if you find out a little bit of the backstory behind the persons who really put a lot of time and effort into these things. And amazing builds again. It's crazy where it got him in 3 years' time.
I know.
Wow.
I'm sitting there when he's talking about the woods and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, okay, so it's probably sounds like 5-6 years ago, maybe more than that, kind of like a pre-COVID sort of thing. If he rode a plus in a snowboard shop. No, 3 years. 3 years.
Bam. Yeah. That's if you really want something and you put your mind to it, you can really, really do miracles.
Jesus,
because building 7 iterations of a one wheel in 3 years, that's passion, man.
Definitely.
And dedication. I also wanted to take this opportunity to mention a soul that has left us in the one wheel community, a true inspiration to a lot of riders. His name is Doug Levy. Some will know him as Douglas. He has been riding. He was 80 plus years old. He's been riding a lot of miles on XRs, GTs. He even got a GTS at the end, which he did around 5,000 miles on.
No, thousands of miles on all his boards. Thousands and thousands.
Yeah, and he was really doing it to keep his stoke high and to keep moving, because in the end he even had like the walking sticks to keep him in balance. Yeah. He didn't want to give in, and he rode until his last breath. So a lot of respect go out, and I hope that he can rest in paradise and float on.
Absolutely, man. I remember seeing the videos of Doug from a few years ago now and just going, that's what I want to be like when I get that old, man. That is just
so truly blessed.
Very sad, but the man did thousands of miles and did what he wanted to do until the end, which is beautiful.
Yeah. So that's what, if we want to do this until the wheel falls off, and that's what he did. So many respects to him, and don't take life for granted. If you have the wheel at the door, just take it, go out every minute that you can, enjoy with friends, family, and embrace everything that you have. Fantastic. I think that's a good note to close the show.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this beautiful thing next to me, keep that nose up, Doug.